process of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroad where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future, shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
Earth has been in a process of transition, and we are not exempt from this remarkable ongoing reality.
And hello and welcome to Real Talk with the Cummings. My name's Mark Angelo.
And I'm Lena Ariel. Thanks for joining us, you guys, on this wonderful Tuesday evening.
Yes, and tonight we've got a special guest. Her name is Janae Rose, who recently, or I think around a year ago, signed with Dream Holding Records.
This has been a big year for me, the Chicago area artist that I've been putting in work over the past few years. And this year I finally saw my hard work pay off.
She says she's looking forward to working with Dream Holding Records, and I read this from an old biography, I guess, but she is here to change the world, and here she is, Janae Rose. Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome, Janae.
Thank you. I love your show.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks,
that. And appreciate you reaching out. And we watched some of your videos and listened to some of your music. You are very talented.
Thank you.
We're not rap
Artist
type of listeners, but you definitely have heart and definitely have a message to put out there. And I'm pretty sure that, you're going to do really well.
Yeah, definitely. Music's like my everything, my whole life. So yeah, I'm just chasing my dream and just trying to share my story and help people.
It's definitely, I would like to call it a sort of therapy, and it's being creative. It's something that really brings out the best in people. When did you first start noticing that you have this talent?
In high school, I played basketball, but when I got to college, I realized that wasn't going to be like a possible career for me. I just wasn't good enough. And I just didn't want to take the traditional route because I can't be normal, if that makes sense. Like, I can't understand how people go to college and then get a job and they work that whole job their whole life and then they die. Like, that would just seem a waste of a life to me. I want to do something that's impactful and I want to follow my dream to the fullest. So since basketball wasn't an option for me, I decided to pursue music.
Definitely. I mean, I have to agree with you there about
sure.
The machine. People are expected to behave like machines, get up every morning, go to the same job,
9 to 5,
9 to 5.
In.
And that seems not to be something that a lot of people that are creative and are meant for greater things are capable of doing. So what was the beginning of your writing? Because you do write music. I know one of the things that rap artists do, they're really deep. It's almost like poetic,
right?
Very poetic in nature. When was your first aha moment that you sat down, pen and paper, and wrote your first lyrics?
It was, I want to say, my sophomore year of high school. I didn't do well in school because I wasn't really focused and I didn't really care too much about school. I didn't like the idea of being forced to go to a place and sit in a desk and do a bunch of work that I didn't see as relevant to me. So I would spend a lot of that time writing lyrics or just writing in general.
That's what happens, a lot of times school is like they teach you subjects that have no bearing on life. As you get older, you don't even use the things that they teach you, and the things that you really need to learn, they're not teaching you at all.
I was a daydreamer. You know, I don't know about you, but the teacher, all I would hear is wah, 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 wah. And it was just like, oh my goodness, I have to put up with this for a whole 12 years. And then you got to go to college and stuff of that nature. So who do you inspire to follow as an artist? Who has been your biggest inspiration as an artist? And it doesn't have to be rap. Sometimes, you know, it could be a country, you know, singer or something like that. Who has been your inspiration?
So growing up, when I was young, Drake and Lil Wayne had a big impact on me. A lot of kids my age, like that was like culture changing. Those artists like kind of changed the culture and revolutionized stuff. Artists like Chief Keef and Little Durk that created the Chicago scene, and which is why Chicago hip hop, also known as Chicago drill music, is so big today. So really just people that have kind of paved the way and changed the culture.
So Chicago, why Chicago? Why what has, you know, drawn you to live there the majority of your life?
I was just born here. That's how most people don't even really want to live here. It's cold, taxes are terrible, property is stupidly expensive here. Everything's expensive. We don't make enough to afford to live here. There's a lot of violence. I don't really know why everyone stays here, but pretty much I was just born here and I've always lived here.
Chicago's huge though. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
are you on the suburbs? Are you like,
Currently,
is it
I'm northwest of the city. I'm not in the city.
okay?
Yeah. But I've lived all around like Chicagoland.
Yeah, and there's some pretty rough places in Chicago, and then there's some really, really, really nice places and stuff.
Yeah, there is. It seems to be no in between. It's either poverty or super rich.
Just the cold weather in and of itself would turn me off. I want to take the time to welcome all our chatters, and we've got a dude called Rowan, and we've got Marcy, Mark, and Becky. Becky's here joining us, and Marcy had something to say that's off topic, but go ahead and.
She said, sorry, off subject, but while I have a chance to say it to Mark and Lynn, I wanted to say thank you for your videos. I am a lesbian who was extremely emotionally abused by Christians and the church.
We could totally agree, you know, and relate with you on that. It's been a crazy journey for us, and I'm sure for a lot of trans people and people from the LGBT who have, gosh, and I'm
Probably
sure
for you too, right, Janae?
Janae, I'm sure that you were raised somewhat religious.
Yeah. I was. My parents are actually baby boomers. They married and had children late, so I'm only 21. But they are baby boomers and they're very religious, very like traditional in that sense.
Like in traditional, are you talking like Catholic or like Pentecostal?
My mom was raised Catholic because my mom is Italian, but she converted to Christianity when she was like in her 20s, I want to say.
Okay.
So, needless to say, a lot of us in the LGBT community have been traumatized, bullied, hurt by many in the Christian and Catholic churches. And I would say that it actually created a lot of our insecurities, our second guessing ourselves, you know,
the guilting and the control and stuff like that.
And to me, the worst part is that just doesn't seem like a reflection of God to me or Jesus. The whole idea of Christianity is to walk like Jesus and be like Jesus, but nothing in the Bible says that Jesus did these sort of things or like hated groups of people and protested them. So I don't understand where the church gets that.
Our thought processes, we don't believe there was a Jesus. I think that it was
that's our own.
That's why I said our own thought process. I think it was created as a form of control, and they've done a great job of it. Because if you see what goes on in the world, it's just like the Savior that gave His life for you, and you owe Him everything, and dare you live your life, you know. And so it kind of makes you wonder how real all this stuff is, and you know what good is it, you know, because I want to believe that if there was a God the way they make it seem, this God would be loving, it would be rooting for us and helping us evolve as spirit beings.
Yeah.
On the contrary, that's not what we're seeing. And it's very hurtful, as Marcy was saying, that there's a lot of emotional abuse.
Yeah, I think a lot of times Christians don't realize how much abuse that they do cause. I mean, specifically towards people in the LGBT, if things aren't done their way, then they're like excommunicated and ruled out of being in contact with them and stuff. You're like a non-person to them, like a modern day leper.
Exactly. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with your family prior to transition and then after transition.
Yeah, so before transition, I've always had issues with my family. I was very troubled growing up. I got kicked out of multiple schools. I was getting in trouble outside of school. So that did create a lot of turmoil, like in the home. And then transitioning was honestly, it was just another thing on top of like issues that are already there. And my parents they don't understand it. They don't agree with it. They don't think it's a thing, but they haven't disowned me. I still have contact with them, but they just don't accept me for who I am.
It's very difficult to hear
Yeah.
that, and knowing that many of us have the same story to tell. I mean, I'm 55 years old and I transitioned back in 2003. And instead of things getting better with my family, it got worse. So, what I found for myself, cutting ties because it was harming me, was messing with my own psyche. And I'm going to ask you this: how has that affected your emotional and mental health, knowing that your family doesn't see you as the woman that you are?
Pretty bad. Like they once I started to transition, they kicked me out. It wasn't the first time that they have kicked me out of the home, but they did kick me out once I got like to a certain point. That and because they don't like rap music, they think it's like the devil's music or something. So I kind of feel like I'm not really wanted by them, and I feel like I'm not part of the family anymore, which definitely hurts.
It's hard.
It seems like that they see you, but they see through you to the person that they want to see. They don't really see you for the person that you are today. They want to see that person that they saw before, and once you can't give them that, then it's like they're demanding of it, and they'll let you be you, but not really.
Well, it's a pretend acceptance, and it's disrespectful because they are not really loving you unconditionally or seeing you as the person that you are. They are loving the person they think that you should be without really even trying to understand you. And I see that all throughout the LGBT community. People are tolerant of us. They might even give us the pronouns. They might even play along with us, but they are not fully accepting. And I have to blame, there's a lot of bad things that I've done myself against the community because of my own insecurities, because of my own self-hatred. And we feed into this system, and we try to tell ourselves, well, I know my biology, right? That's something that I've had to completely let go of. It's like, I'm a man. As you identify yourself as a woman, we shouldn't have to settle for what society wants us to be.
Absolutely. I think that's more destructive than anything else,
I feel like a lot of people in the community are trying too hard to pander to groups that don't even like us. And I don't understand that.
And there's a lot of that going on. I want to take this time real quick to congratulate Elliot on his top surgery. Congratulations, Elliot. I know that it was a very special day for you, and I'm like it is for many of us who make our stepping stones, our milestones on finally accomplishing our completeness. So congrats, Elliot.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Janae. It's Janae or Janae?
It's Janae.
Janae.
Yeah.
When was the first time that you realized that something was not right? That you saw the kids in school, or you saw yourself compared to other people, and then things just didn't jive. You didn't quite know what words to use.
Yeah.
When was that time?
There was always like some sort of feeling, but I just didn't know what the feeling was. When I was 10, I was actually playing Call of Duty on Xbox Live, and someone in the game chat was talking about how someone got a sex change. And at the time, I didn't know words like transgender or anything like that. And I just, in my head at 10 years old, I was just like, that's a thing. Like, that's crazy. And for some reason, I wanted it the second I heard that, but I didn't know why.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So when you had that thought process, what followed? What did you do to try to figure out?
Or did you just sit on it for years and let it?
A lot of that age is blurry, but I do remember my parents telling me at that age that like God makes you the way you are, and that being gay is a sin and those people go to hell. And like looking back, it's like, why would you even tell a 10-year-old that? Like that, like even if you believed that, why would you tell a 10-year-old that? So, and
Was it
there was many moments where my dad would like tell me like, oh, like you do this like a girl, you do that like a girl. So it pushed me into this like hyper masculine role that I tried to play.
and that's very common with a lot of individuals in the LGBT
Right.
community, suppressed, spirit broken, told, "Why do you do this? Girls don't do this." And that was my case, and your case was, "Why are you behaving?" Fill in the blank,
Yeah.
and they kind of create this whole trauma in our heads instead of loving your child, no matter what.
And then that whole doomsday scenario, like if you have these thoughts in your head, oh my God, they're so ungodly, you're going to go to hell, you're going to burn forever, and you're not going to want to do that, are you? And it's like, they're just totally freaking out a young kid, like you said, you're 10 years old. I mean, it's crazy. It's abuse. I think personally, it's emotional and psychological abuse. What churches do these days.
So
Me.
how did it make you feel when they would say that? What was going on in your young mind when they said that
I
to you?
just I just thought my dad was just being a dick, and I didn't really I don't know if I took it to heart at the moment, but I didn't really take it personal. I just took it as like he was just messing with me or something. But there's other factors that led me to the point where I had to like be as masculine as I could, because I went to behavioral schools from like second grade. So even being that young, like I had to be tough. I had to go in there and like be like a stereotypical man. And so a lot of that really affected me.
Was your father physically abusive towards you, or verbally abusive?
Never, probably just verbally.
Verbally abusive. Is that why you think maybe that you started like rebelling and started having what you would consider behavioral issues? Is that it was like more of a rebellious type of nature?
I think that's part of it, but at the same time, like in preschool, I was acting out and having issues, and I don't have like any memory of that, but I know I was like distressed as a child. That's all I remember is just being distressed.
And that's pretty interesting because I think a lot of us kind of black out certain times
Trauma
or trauma
times.
times in our
Yeah.
lives because it's too painful for us to deal with, and we have different ways of acting out, and then they try to like label us with all sorts of conditions,
ADHD.
ADHD, and they try to give us medication, and they try to, but they don't understand that, like you said, when you stick a child in a classroom, we're not meant to be sitting down listening to a teacher go wah 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 wah. We're meant to be running around, playing, exerting all our energy, and creating and doing things that we enjoy. But
Mhm.
they prefer to stick kids in a classroom, medicate them, and call them behaviorally challenged.
Yeah,
And I find that,
I got diagnosed with ADHD when I was about 6, and they put me on medication.
wow. And we see that a lot this day and age. And you got to
do.
kind of wonder, is every child, ADHD? Or is it something that society is failing to do that allows the youth to evolve and develop naturally the way they need to?
Right.
I think
So.
I do have ADHD though, even as an adult. I mean, I don't have the best like focus, and the dopamine, like that's definitely like a thing. Like I definitely like crave dopamine more than most people, and so like I'll do different things to try to get that constantly.
Right.
So I think I might have it.
But would you safely say, because you create and you write, so you do have the focus to sit down and put words on paper and do the things that you like. So it's, is it something that is a disorder, or is it just that you are a very high energy individual that enjoys creating and enjoys seeking things in life versus being stuck in a box, in a chair, in a very stagnant environment?
I mean, I would think that you like to do things that are transformative for you, things that you create a song out of the thin air, right? Nobody's ever put the lyrics together. It's your baby, right? So when we approach this transition, we do the same exact thing. We transform ourselves and we become the things that we want to see for ourselves. And, I think that that's the beauty of being a person with a trans history, is that you have that ability to use your creativity, not only in a way that you're writing songs, but also in a way where you're transforming your whole outlook on life, how you're perceived. And honestly, that is a very creative and transformative thing to do.
Yeah, definitely.
So now that let's go back in time, you went to high school and you started like wanting to express more in who you are. When did you start actually engaging in self-expression and being more comfortable in your skin?
Like as like trans, like, or as like
Yes.
a woman, like that.
Well, as a woman,
I mean, was it first more like, there's some people actually, they come out as gay, or they, have relationship with guys as a guy and that kind of thing. How was that process for you, and how did you approach it?
I was very much so in denial, and I tried my hardest to convince myself that like I wasn't trans. Like I'd look up probably like weekly, like how do I know if I'm trans? And then like I'd sit there and like I'd pick through everything and be like, oh, I can't be trans because this or that. And it would be something like, in my mind, I was like, I wish I was born female, but I'm not trans. And like that sounds so stupid, but that made sense in my mind.
Well, it doesn't sound stupid, because I don't think any of us really just woke up one day and said, I wish I was trans. I mean, we are transitioning, which is, the word transition means from getting from point A to point B. We transition to alter ourselves to be the sex that we feel we are inside of, the sex we know we are. That word feel just creates a lot of, it gets taken out of proportion. But, when we want to align ourselves, we take the steps that we need to take to make ourselves feel comfortable. And so transition it's just like a fade. When you're editing a movie, you create the transitions to make the scenes go from one scene to the next. Once you're done with transition, and that looks different from everybody, then you are no longer trans, in my opinion. You are either a woman or a man. I mean, because there's two sexes,
right?
Man or woman. I know there are different people that identify differently, and more power to them. I mean, I'm only speaking for how I see myself and the road that I've had to take to finally come to peace and in terms with who I am. With you, how was that progression?
I convinced myself that like somewhere in my freshman year of high school, I convinced myself that I was just a cross dresser and that was it. Like, I'm not actually trans because I had a reputation and I was decently popular. And so, like, I was so afraid of like being trans because I felt like nobody would love me and that I would lose all my respect and my reputation. So I was living this crazy double life where I would like go out and I'd be like hanging out with gangs and I'd be drinking, smoking, selling drugs, like robbing people, doing all sorts of stuff that I shouldn't be. And I'd come home and I'd cross dress. And it always fucked me up in the head. But I always knew I was like, this isn't it. Like, it's not a sexual thing. I don't just like it. Like, I'm doing this because this is the only time where like I feel comfortable in my own skin, when I can be alone and actually feel like myself.
It's interesting you say that because I'm sure there are a lot of people that can relate with you. They want to be the person that they are, but they're too afraid to take that first step because of
Yeah.
either losing a family, losing their reputation, especially for a male to female. I mean, men are supposed to be a certain way, and if they give up that man card, there's a price to pay, and it must be very, very difficult. So I could totally empathize with you, the struggles that you went through trying to lead this double life.
Especially
It's
being
very
in like the
difficult.
environment that I was in, just surrounded by hyper masculinity and just toxic masculinity. And it was just, when I came out, I got a lot of hate, but I was surprised. Like, some people really did respect me for being honest and like, because they were thinking like, oh, if I felt this way, I wouldn't be able to do that. So I guess I wasn't really like, I shouldn't have been that afraid.
I think this day and age is a lot better than it used to be. I think people are
Yeah.
opening up their minds a little bit more. There's still a lot of hatred and a lot of division, even amongst their own community. That's why I said earlier, we need to like break away from this whole biological thing. I mean, we've been having this discussion and argument actually regarding what people like, well, you can't be delusional. You have to know your biology. And I say this, we transition to change our sex, not to walk around in life to have a trans label.
Yeah.
Transition is a period of time. Once you're done with that transition, you're done, and you no longer identify as trans. You identify as the sex you transition to. And I think the more and more of us see that and give ourselves respect and have others respect us, the more people will see who we truly are. If not, people are kind of like wishy-washy.
Right.
Who are you? What are you? And that creates a lot of problems in-house for ourselves where we kind of question who we are. And I know that happened to me,
Yeah,
and
definitely. I
yeah.
just I see so many people like, it just rubs me the wrong way when they bring up like biology. I mean, that's not relevant to my life. That doesn't help me as an artist. That doesn't help me as a woman. That doesn't help me as a trans person. There's no reason to talk about it. I don't have to prove to anyone I'm not delusional. I don't really give a fuck if someone thinks I'm delusional. I mean, I don't get why everyone's like that in the community.
It's just crazy. And you've got certain groups of people that love to use that card as their motif, and they throw
Yeah.
that in our face like, listen, I walk around the world, nobody sees anything other than a man, no one sees anything other than a woman. We're a married couple, legally married, we live. Our neighbors don't know. We don't walk around telling people, hey, guess what?
We happen to be
Yeah.
trans.
So it's
It's
like,
like, what purpose does that serve? And then they tell you, well, when you are buried and dead and they go exhume your body, they're going to find that you were this gender and that, it's
Yeah.
like, who cares?
how many people get taken out of the grave?
I mean,
About
it's
that,
such
I'm
a
dead.
petty argument, really.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
I said I'm dead. I can't feel any way about that. Like,
I know. He was going to go digging for our bones. And
uh,
Elliot, let's see here. Elliot said, absolutely. I was so scared to transition because I knew I'd lose family over it. And that's so hard to deal with. It is very hard to deal with, but there comes a time, and here's telling somebody who's transitioned since 2003 and thinking that things would get better, it doesn't. And what happens is you get messed up because you're trying to, you're trying to like cater to them, and you lose out on yourself. You lose out and your mind gets all twisted, and you just start getting their thought process in your mind and then mess with you. So my advice is one has to cut the ties. It's kind of like you have a cancer. You don't sit there and walk around petting your cancer and telling your cancer how great it is. No, you cut it out, because if you don't, it will kill you.
Well, the attempts to placate them and to give them what they want in the end causes more destruction for you. And people think that we're being selfish by transitioning. No, we're being people that have this sense of wanting to preserve ourselves as humans, and we want to live our best life. So this is how we do it.
So how do you?
I didn't have anything before this. Like, I didn't have anything that I actually cared about. I had a bunch of people around me who didn't like really care about me, and I had my big, strong masculine man persona, but like I didn't have anything to me. Like, now I have me, and no one can take that from me.
So let me ask you, now that you've are living your life as the woman that you are, do you feel that all those labels of ADHD and behavioral issues and stuff like that, do they still apply to you? Or are you feeling that you're healing because now you're being seen for the woman that you are? You no longer have to pretend to be something that you're not. Do you feel there's a healing taking place? And I know it doesn't happen overnight, because the years of damage takes a while to heal. Do you feel any different, Janae?
I mean, definitely, like, things are definitely better. Like, I'm slowly getting better as far as like mental health goes. I've been institutionalized. I spent like my whole school time going to different behavioral schools and alternative schools where they treat you like a prisoner, and like you're not allowed to do anything, and they tell you like, oh, you're gonna grow up and like you're gonna be prison and all this stuff. So like, really, like, it's taking a while to recover from that. And like, after all that happened, I'm seeing like how fucked up it was to like put a bunch of kids through that.
It does affect you, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that you don't remember as you were growing up, as you were treated, that created all the ramifications. For every action there's a reaction, and children are like sponges, and they pick up the vibes and the anger and of that nature of the adults. I blame a child for their behavior. There's no such thing, in my opinion, as a bad child. I think bad parenting, bad situations that child was exposed to, whether it be sexual molestation, whether it be emotional beatings, whatever it is, even though they may not physically hit you, an emotional beating hurts just as much, if not more. And so, as a child, you were doing what you knew how.
Yeah.
How you knew best. So
I had it driven into my head over and over again as a child that I was a delinquent and that I was a criminal and that I was going to grow up and like not be anything. All my friends were being treated the same way. And a lot of those friends, they're in prison now, or they're not even with us anymore because of that. And it's just so sad to see this trap that like I feel like they set for us, and like I somehow dodged it. I haven't had any arrests as an adult. My last arrest was as a minor. So I have a clean record, and like I just feel grateful because I can't say that for my friends that grew up in the same situation.
And I'm sure it's because of their, it's like the way they were treated, the way they were disrespected. Parents don't realize the harm they do their children. They aren't aware of what they can do. And all it takes is a simple, kind word, giving people the hope that, hey, you're great, you're doing wonderful. You know, you
No one
bring out
told
the
me I could
best in
be
people.
anything else. I didn't know I could be anything else.
Wow. I'm just so happy that you've overcome
Yeah.
that, and that you've got a goal and you're heading in the direction that you want to head. And that's important, you know, that you are a survivor, you know, because you could, like you say, you could be like your friends, dead or in prison,
Yeah.
and you're here in front of a camera, filling your heart people about your story. And that's important because you will help other people overcome their obstacles as well. I want to take this time to thank Darcy for joining us.
Yeah. Hi, Darcy.
And let's see, Darcy had something to share with us.
Darcy said, I remember transitioning and going to the hospital. I was suicidal and on watch. I was there for 3 weeks and they put me with the women, treated me like one. I was not seen as a male there.
That is so disrespectful and very damaging, and, you know,
Psychologically
abusive. And, you know, people don't get that. People don't understand how deep. I believe that this is so deep that it goes into the spirit level. And I know a lot of people don't understand that, but we are more than our bodies. And I believe that our essence comes deep within. It's something that cannot be explained possibly in human terms, but it's very spiritual in nature. And the natives used to understand it very well. You know, the Native Americans and the native of other countries, they honored individuals like us in their tribes.
I see it
And we
as like
really do.
body's just a body. Like your soul is like the driver. So your body's like the car, and then your soul is what's real. The bodies deteriorate, bodies fade
Exactly.
away. The souls stay forever.
Exactly. Very, very true. And Darcy said that it only made him feel worse when they did that situation. There's a lot of people that have actually committed suicide in these hospitals because of being misgendered and mistreated.
Oh, yeah. And Marcy says, thank you, Janae, for sharing your story. Every story helps so much. You're helping people, Janae, because people, they're hurting. They've
Yeah,
been abused. They've been psychologically, just punched, and a lot of us are recovering from spiritual abuse, and that's a very difficult place to come from,
yeah.
because the conditioning is so deep.
Very, very deep. So, when did you decide to take the big plunge to start your transition?
Um, so I think it was 2018 when I was homeless for about 2 weeks because two of my friends were homeless and I was trying to help them. And my parents weren't helping at all. And I kind of got mad at them and they basically kicked me out of the house. So I was homeless for 2 weeks. And it was during that time where I had come out to a girl that I was talking to. And she was the first person I ever told when I was homeless because I needed to tell somebody at that point. And I ended up getting an apartment with her and two other roommates. And from that point, things got really crazy and it somehow like I got outed to everybody in the house and then that like went to my whole area. And then all of a sudden, like just people in my area just knew. Like people would like I'd go over and someone would just ask me like, "Oh, like so and so said you wanted to be a girl." Like, "Oh, like is that true?" And it's like that was really invasive for me. But it was like getting to a point where it was hard for me to deal with that, like being outed like that. But like I was getting closer to the point where I could be myself because I was seeing like, oh, well, like people know that I have this desire and like I'm still alive, like I'm still okay. Like it's not as scary as I thought it would be. But it took more time. And then I had a falling out with my friend group and it was at that point where I was like, I don't really have anything to lose at this point. So I just went ahead and just went on.
You went on
HRT.
HRT
Yeah.
hormones? Right.
I was
So,
before then, I was like publicly, I was presenting as male. but I was like somewhat active in the trans community online.
That's usually a very safe place to start, is the
Right.
online community.
Yeah.
You're almost kind of getting your feet wet and trying to like, feel the waters and stuff like that.
Mhm.
It's a lot easier these days than it was before, but I'm sure it's still very difficult, especially if you have a persona that you're trying to keep up. You're in the rap world; it's a very male-dominated industry. Um, it's scary. It's scary for you to lose your, your man card, your wherever it was that you got while you were rapping. It's like I'm sure that crossed your mind that you were going to lose all respect. How
Yeah.
did you handle that? How did you handle that situation?
I was originally planning to like I was like I want to blow up before I come out, but then it got to a point where I was like that's stupid, screw that. And it was just I couldn't live as a guy anymore. I just had to be myself. And I lost fans and like my numbers went down, but then I just started building a new fan base. And as I like pursued my goals and my dream in music as a trans woman, I started to get a lot of respect from like other people in the industry and people that have known me before. Like people started to come back and like start paying attention to my social media because they saw I was doing better and that I was doing this as a trans woman. And it blows my mind to this day that I get respect in this industry as a trans woman by like a bunch of cis people, like other rappers that like I've spoken to, and like no one's really disrespectful to me, and I just didn't ever expect that to happen.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
That's awesome. I mean, you wouldn't think that would be it, but times are changing, and the music industry, thankfully, has always been a very accepting and open industry, or somewhat,
art.
because it's art. It's
Yeah.
art.
Not the hip hop side of it, but it's getting there to a degree.
So, how's your record company been with all your endeavors, or your when you transitioned? Did they
Yeah.
sign you up before you transition or afterwards?
No, it was I was probably like a few months on estrogen, like 4 or 5 maybe, when
Okay.
I signed with them.
And then they've been pretty cool with it.
Yeah, they've been fine with it. When they first signed me, they had an article that they wrote about me and like they used wrong pronouns. And I guess they just didn't understand like trans and
Yeah.
pronouns or whatever, but I corrected them on that and they fixed that. It's not like a record label, it's a distribution label. So they just put my music on stores and like promote it. But I'm not like under like an actual record deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, what what is your ultimate goal, as far as like what would you like to see yourself 5 years from now?
I mean, my ultimate goal is to be self-sustainable. I work at a store right now in the deli. I want to be able to quit that job and make all of my money doing what I love and making that money as my own boss. I feel like that should be everyone's goal, to be self-sustainable, because I don't want to be under somebody or rely on somebody else for my paycheck. I want to be able to just go out there and get it on my own.
I hear you, and that's what a lot of people. Well, I don't want to say a lot of people inspire that, because a lot of people enjoy
Being a part of
being
the rat race.
being
right?
part of the rat race, but people that are
Yeah.
creative, it's really hard to sit there and punch a card and be told what to do all
Because
the
you're
time.
meant for more than that. You know that life is not about a time card and a Monday through Friday job, 9 to 5.
Exactly.
Yeah. And with the music, it's for me, it's not about fame or money or any of that. It's about helping people and being able to live a happy, comfortable life and like make money. Like I don't need to be rich, but if I can support myself and like if I want something, I can go ahead and buy that. Like that's all I want. I'll be happy with that. I don't have to be like super rich and famous.
I hear that. I mean, wealth is something that comes and goes, and you can't take it with you when you go. Self-respect, being healthy, being able to do what you love, which is a gift in and of itself. So Darcy had something else to say. Why are men so concerned when a trans woman transitions, but they don't give trans men as much of an issue as if we don't exist? Is masculinity really that much protected when a guy wants to become a girl? What do you have to say about that, Janae?
About that?
Mm-hmm.
So the way I've heard it explained before is that people perceive like a trans man as female and trans women as male, and to like be a man and be feminine, that's frowned upon. To be a woman and like do things that like women don't usually do, that's like empowering, and like it's regarded more highly. Like I don't know if
Yeah,
that
that's
makes sense, but
yeah, it does. And it's true. I mean, it's always like, it's more acceptable for a girl to be a tomboy, to be more masculine than it is for a man to be more feminine. And it's almost like this code of conduct, that gets broken. And it's like that needs to stop because, bottom line, sex and reproduction, let me see if I can explain this. Men and women are very much alike. We're not as different as people think. Um, there are a lot of women that like to do manly things. There are a lot of men that like to do womanly things. Identity wise, though, there's something deep within our core, a feeling. And again, I hate using the word feeling because they make fun of that word, but people need to understand there are feelings, and we do have this feeling inside, this essence that we understand of who we are. So
yeah.
that deep rooted thing that we could call whatever is very individualized.
Mm-hmm.
And the stereotypes shouldn't be a thing, because I know there are men that are a lot less masculine, and don't make them anything other than just a man who's less masculine. And there are women that are much more masculine, and that's their personality. But then we have this essence within us, an essence like when somebody sees me, they can't but help to see an alpha man. That's the essence, and I've been that way since I came out of my mother's womb.
I think that's rare, though, in the trans community. Trans men, a lot of them are perceived as not that alpha. It seems like alpha is like a word that is almost like a bad word, for trans men. It's almost like, we're in conversation with two trans guys who basically, they don't like that alpha label. They think it's offensive for you to be Markangelo.
And this is who
it's
I
like
am,
offensive, because they don't really have that type of nature within them to be that masculine in the sense of being an alpha male. And that is something that's not very common.
But it's individualized. It's like not every woman is very feminine, and so when people try to put all women in a box, it's wrong. When people try to put all men in a box, it's wrong. We could only be who we are. It's like I'm sure that many of us in the trans community struggle to try to fit into some sort of stereotypical box. And the beauty of it all is just be yourself. Love yourself and be yourself,
I see so much of that in the community, and I just don't get it. I mean, like, I spent so much time being someone else. Why would I be concerned with like stereotypes or trying to fit into a box? Like, I'm trying to be Janae. Like, I'm not trying to be like the stereotypical female.
Yeah, and there shouldn't be a stereotypical female, because last I checked, there's all sorts of types of females.
Yeah,
Tall female, short female, strong female, skinny females, overweight females, females that it's just like you can't even like.
When I worked in sports, I was in sports television and stuff, and it's a very male-dominated sport career choice, cameraman, that kind of thing. And basically when I transitioned, it was like some of the guys were just like, I don't even want to talk to you. I don't even want to associate with you. I don't even want to speak to you ever again. You are not cool. You know, I mean, it was like so totally like, I mean, it was like the polarization was just so obvious, you know. Whereas if a woman were to have transitioned into a man, it would have played out differently. It would have been like, you know, oh wow, you know, that's kind of hot or something, you know. It's almost like they, I don't know, but the man card thing and just that whole masculinity thing, and why would you ever want to give it up? You know, it's like, because I'm not a guy. That's why.
Elias says that he thinks that it's part of the trans guys blend in more easily because it's easier for them to pass on T. And Marcy says.
Darcy, that's very true. I see that a lot also, like the boys don't cry story.
That was a good movie, very sad, true story. And Darcy says, threatens masculinity for a guy to be feminine. It's true. It's true. Has your father confronted you at all, Janae, now that you transition? Like, has he said anything rude to you or been, you know, I'm trying to find it.
It's been like, they just try to act like shit doesn't exist. Like things aren't the way that they just keep going like nothing's ever changed. And that's how it's been with everything. Like shit just gets swept under the rug and ignored. So that's they pretty much just act like I'm the same person I've been my whole life.
That's disrespectful because they're not acknowledging you at all.
Yeah,
and that's probably,
they never bring it up. They just pretend it doesn't exist.
you know,
that has a way of really causing long-term damage. So I just want you to, you know, take care of yourself, because that just wears on you over time. You know, Mark actually left all of that behind back in 2003 when he originally transitioned. And it was only until this past year that he was able to really confront those demons and get rid of them.
Yeah.
You know,
because you sweep them under the rug, but eventually come up and they haunt you. You know, it's important for the people that love us or claim to love us to acknowledge us. They may not agree with us, they may not like it, but it's not their life, it's our life to live. And if they had any decency in them and any love at all, they would learn to love unconditionally, because it's not their life, it's yours, it's ours. It's those of us that live as transgender men and women who are transitioning to become the sex that we know we are. It's, you know, and it's time for us to rise up and not take BS anymore from people, not from the religious sector, not from the radical feminist sector, not from anyone who don't have the respect to see us for who we are. You know,
it's just so hard though, because like I love my mom and I love my dad, and like we have good conversation, and there's things that I love about them, and I value our relationship. But at the same time, like they're hurting me, and they don't listen when I say like you're hurting me. So like I don't want to lose the relationship because there's good aspects to it, but like it also does hurt me.
in the long run though, and I know you're young and there's that, and I felt the same way for a very long time. We all want to hold on, but in the long run, it doesn't get any better for most of us. And there's so much damage being done to our own emotional health, trying to raise them up, trying to raise their value and what they want. And we continue to put ourselves down, down, down to the point where we literally bury ourselves. And that's not cool, because you are a human being who needs love, unconditional love. And it's not just like, okay, well, at least they're talking to me, but they're not seeing you. They're not respecting you. They're not valuing you as a person. And you got to think of it. Was that the same thing all the way through from the time you were a young child, that they didn't see you and you were screaming for attention, but they still didn't see you. They still didn't honor you. They still labeled you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you hit the nail on the head. Like they've never really seen me. They've never really actually wanted to listen to me and help me. They kind of like have this box for me, and if I don't fit into that,
Mhm.
then like I'm not good enough for them. And it's really sad because my sister is like she's autistic, but she's very high functioning, intelligent. But my parents are so controlling, and they have like kind of manipulated her into like doing like they tell her not to help me and like not to give me anything, not to give me a ride if I need a ride. And like I don't really understand
Oh,
why they do that, but yeah, my sister will just be like, "Oh, because mom and dad said this, I'm gonna do this," and she's older than me too. But it's just really sad
yeah.
to see how brainwashed she really is.
I mean, they're actively working to destroy you and your identity. I mean, they want their person back. That's what they want. And they will do anything to get there, you know. And if it takes the long way, then they're invested in, you know, chipping away slowly but surely, trying to get you to see. But what they fail to realize is that this is who you are. There's no chipping away
Yeah,
because this only will cause more problems.
I want to say though that I think a lot of parents really is not a matter of wanting who they want back. It's about how they look as individuals.
Oh yeah, their
Their
reputation.
reputation. We
Yeah.
are embarrassing them.
Oh yeah.
And that's pretty sad because I mean I'm not a parent and I wouldn't know what it feels like, but if I
yeah,
had a child, I would love that child unconditionally. And there's no one that could talk bad about that child at all because my child could do no wrong. And when parents decide to be parents, they have to have that mentality. Your child could come out and be a criminal, it could be whatever it is, but you love that child no matter what. You are their cheerleader. You are the rock that holds them up. You are the person that brought them into this world, and you have to prepare them for no matter what. And I say, shame on those parents that have destroyed the life of their children.
And prepare to accept your child,
Yeah.
no matter how they come,
Yeah.
you know, no matter how they turn out. They're still your baby, you know.
yeah.
It's really
I've never been
sad.
good enough. Like
Yeah.
anything I've done, they would only focus on the negative and be like, "Oh, well, you could have done this better." Like they've never encouraged me really in any way.
I know how you feel because that's been the story of my life too. I was never good enough. I want you to realize you are enough. You're more than enough, Janae.
Hmm.
You will prove to the world that you're not that F up that they said that you were going to be.
Yeah.
You're going to do great things. Let me ask you, do you have any plans on having children, doing something for later in the future, maybe save um, however it is that you plan to be able
Yeah.
to have children, whether it's adopting or whatever, do you feel that you would be a good parent?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely do want to be a parent. I live with my boyfriend in an apartment. We've been dating for a year and a half, and we've talked about
Congratulations.
kids. Huh? What?
That's awesome. I say
Yeah.
congratulations. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
congrats.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
crazy. I met him like a week after getting on hormones.
oh wow.
Wow.
Yeah, so
That's
it's insane. Actually, no, we
Yeah, we
started
saw some video.
after I got on hormones. I met him before that though.
oh. So he's
But we're
very
more
loving and accepting of who you are.
yeah, very, very. He's pansexual.
That's awesome. That's
So
awesome.
he's been with literally everything. He's been with trans men, trans women, cis women, cis men.
Wow. So any plans for the future? Any new albums on the works? Anything that you um, maybe you want to do like a little short rap, little something that you've been writing,
Impromptu.
impromptu or something like that. But before we do that, Marcy says, Janae, they're missing out on an amazing, talented, kind soul. There you go. That's
Thank
the way we feel too.
thank you. That was nice. I appreciate that.
So
Yeah,
any
but yeah. To answer your question, yeah, I do have a little EP that I'm working on. It's just a bunch of remixes of like songs that already exist. And then I do want to drop something special for I think it's called Trans Visibility Day. It's March 31st. I'm not whatever day that is.
Okay.
Trans Visibility Day. I do want to drop something special for that and collaborate with a few other trans artists I know.
Collaborate. You broke up when you said collaborate with who?
I want to collaborate with a few other trans artists for that day.
Oh, cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So do you have a little something prepared that you could do, like a little short little rap tune or something that?
Prepare? No, not at the moment.
No, at the moment. Okay.
Hey, well, I wanted to ask you. There's a song that you do, and it has it mentions a certain YouTuber that's quite popular.
Yeah.
Trans. Yeah. What inspired that song, and what's the story behind
it? That goes back. So when I first moved into this apartment, actually, I had tweeted some things about Blair White. It was just some criticisms. I was just saying, I don't remember the exact tweets I made, but I was saying that like she kind of just keeps saying the same things and nothing she's saying is really helping the trans community. So I was just saying she should probably focus on something that's more helpful instead of just like, like, whoa, look at these crazy weird trans people, which is basically what she's doing.
Right, and that's pretty hurtful. Like I said, I've had my history in the past, and that's because I was dealing with my own demons. I think when people tend to want to hurt other people, it's because they're hurting themselves.
Mhm.
And it's all about growing, healing, and we all are worthy of forgiveness. But when you continue to do it, and when you continue to like try to stomp people down to bring yourself up, that's not cool at all. You don't tell somebody that your biology is this. That's not up to any trans person or any person to tell anybody what their biology is. You respect the individual for how they express and how they're presenting. No questions asked. That's not your life. It's not your problem.
Mhm.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
No, I think it's really toxic when people within the trans community, or that they identify as being a trans man or trans woman, will then go after the very community that they are supposedly a part of.
Right.
And and then they garner the attention of like all these different fundamental right-wing people, and radical feminists, and all these people are like cheering them on because they're like, oh, they know their biology. At least they know their biology. We can use those people. But they don't realize that they're pawns in their hands.
Yeah.
They're being used to destroy the community.
Yeah, exactly. And Darcy says, feminism is so bad now, I want no part of it. I'm telling you. Yeah, totally. And Elliot says,
blows my mind how parents can reject their kids so easily. Like, you chose to create a human being.
Exactly. We didn't ask.
Nobody asked to come here.
We didn't say, hey, bring me to this world.
I guess they expected a good, well-mannered Christian boy or something, but I was never that. And even if I wasn't trans, like, I wasn't that. So they were already upset with who I was, and then just throw trans on top of that. But can we actually go back to the Blair White thing? Because I actually didn't. There's a whole story to this.
Oh, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
So after those tweets, she blocked me immediately without like saying anything, and I just felt like really disrespected by that. And so everything that I've known like to do when you feel disrespected, I went on social media and I basically said like Blair White can't come to Chicago, and if she does, like I'm gonna deal with it. And like she responded by DMing me on Instagram and telling me that I'm sick for being like a man and threatening to beat her up. And so it was so fucked to me that a trans person would misgender me like that. Then later on, I was on one of her live streams and I got in an argument with some of her fans. And I don't remember what happened, but they ended up like massive, like striking my YouTube channel or something. And I ended up getting my whole channel deleted. I had 400 subs at the time. I worked a year on that channel and it was just gone. It was completely gone. I'm still trying to recover from that. So after that, I then reached out to Blair and I was like, I want to like be mature about this and like I want to resolve the situation in a positive way. And I was like, can we talk? And she just starts calling me a man like over and over again. And I have the video on my YouTube channel of the conversation of her just calling me a man over and over again. And that really just struck me as like, this person's trans and she's intentionally misgendering me.
Yeah,
But
I don't understand,
yeah,
the animosity in the community and how certain people feel that, they're better than others. And, we're all at different parts in our journey. And some people may pass more than others, but that doesn't discount who they are,
yeah,
and as a community, we shouldn't tear each other down because the world already does enough of that. We need to unite, instead of fight. And it's sad. It really,
I mean, and the thing is that it's a process for so many. And, there are some that start early. And our position about young trans and puberty blockers and all that has really taken a real 180 turn, because if you can start earlier and this is what you want out of life, that would be your best option.
right.
Literally. Before we wouldn't have said that. But, Blair has had the opportunity to have plastic surgery done and other, breast implants and things like that. So, I mean, Blair's been on the transition road and has been successfully able to transition.
Right.
yeah.
And other people just don't have those types of privileges available to them. So for her to demean,
I'm so poor. And there was a point where I didn't have a job and I went an entire month without estrogen. And it was terrible because I just didn't have the money. And the
Right.
whole
Yeah,
month,
it's really,
yeah.
it's hard. And, I don't want to badmouth anyone, but it's not cool, to misgender people and to hurt people's
especially
feelings.
if you're trans yourself.
Yeah, it's really,
it's like,
we don't need to tear each other down. On the contrary, because like I said, the world already does enough of that.
Before though, talking about the generation before, people got along in the LGBT community.
Yes.
There wasn't this tit for tat. There wasn't this me against you mentality.
Exactly.
It was everybody was in, together.
Because
right?
we knew we were already facing, the discrimination of other people. It wasn't cool to be a lesbian or gay at the time, and trans wasn't even heard of, back in the day. So now that all these privileges have been granted to people, all they do is fight. There's a lot of infighting, and then there's a lack of communication. You can't disagree with someone without them turning around, like the little Twitter wars we were having, with who. And it's like you can't even disagree or state your point without them getting all bent out of shape,
I think people just need to chill out and just understand that like there's no reason to be talking about other people, other trans people, like if this person is trans or if that person's trans or any shit like that. Like just focus on yourself and like live your life. Like just why is there all this conversation about stuff that's like, honestly, I feel like if cis people hear the shit we're talking about, it's just gonna make them like even more confused and not like
and it makes it worse. It gives them ammunition to talk against us if we're providing that ammunition ourselves. That's pretty sad. I hope that things change and people just let people be and live, because like I said, transition is a moment in time. You transition, you have a trans history, you're now living the life that you knew you should have lived from the get-go. So anything else you wanted to add? Any other information you wanted your fans to know, or the viewers, or since you're not going to give us a little rap song or anything like that? So.
Can I actually ask you a question?
Sure.
So in the first interview that you did with Calvin, you said that you brought Jazz Jennings on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know more about that because how did
I was very popular in the day back in when I transitioned. There was hardly no one, and I had from Maury Povich show, you name it. It was all sorts of different TV shows. So Jeanette reached out to me, and there was an article being done about me in Miami Times, which is a very big magazine. And I told the reporter that I knew an actual young 5-year-old trans girl. And back then that wasn't even heard of. And so they became very interested in the family. And Jeanette and I became very good friends. And they ended up interviewing Jeanette, even though they kept them totally anonymous. And Barbara Walters was very interested in the article that they wrote about Little Jazz and about me. And then 2020 wine and dined me and my ex-wife at the time. And we convinced Jeanette and Greg to actually have an interview with Barbara Walters.
Okay.
So, yeah.
No, I just thought that was really
And the
cool.
rest is
And
history.
the rest is history.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
cool because I've seen the show and I saw that interview with Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
really cool that you were a part of that.
Yeah. I was so involved. I was such a trans advocate back in the day, and, fierce trans advocate. And just a lot of things happened. Like I said, stuff that I didn't work through, internalized transphobia, stemmed from religious upbringing, from having parents that did not see me or did not want to accept me, tolerated me. But I was just like, oh, yeah, we know the story. It's like they pretend to tolerate, but my mom only sees what she wants to see. Mm-hmm. So my healing has come from finally cutting ties completely and honoring myself. I am not anything but a man, and I refuse to let anybody else say anything else, because I've dealt with many detransitions struggling with the things that I've had to struggle inside. Mm-hmm. No more struggles. I am Mark Angelo Cummings. And that's it.
Sorry, my boyfriend was just blowing my phone up.
That's all right.
Viewed right now.
So anything else you wanted to add or say, or anybody have any questions for Janae? Let's see here. Darcy was talking more about Blair, that they had facial feminization. So she has no place to misgender someone when she herself didn't pass before her surgeries. That's not cool. I mean, I don't know Blair.
Here. So I mean, like, I'm relatively new to transition.
And everybody has, it's stages that we go through. No one's better than anyone else because you're 20 years into your transition or only a year. We're all the same. We all struggle. Even I thought I had got done with my struggles, and, I didn't, obviously, when I've been going through a lot of turmoil. But, we can't sweep things under a rug, because then when things blow up, they blow up. It's important that we work through our pain, that we acknowledge that those people around us love us and, don't reject us or don't not see us. Like, you're not seen and many of us aren't seen. And that does so much harm.
I mean, I think it really cripples a person's transition when they have to focus on those negative aspects of the relationships that they have, or people don't see them and stuff like that. And I'm only talking about it from my own personal perspective and experience. And when you decide that you don't really give two F's about what anybody has to say about you and what anybody has to say regarding you, that's when your real transformation and your real transition begins, because it's not about the estrogen, it's not about progesterone, it's not about testosterone. It's about you as an individual coming to terms with who you are and allowing the beauty of you to develop, and that is when true transformation begins, because beauty comes from within.
Exactly.
And I really think that that's an important aspect to transitioning, is being at peace with yourself. If you're not, then you could have the best hormone or whatever, but it won't matter, because you're still living in this
war. It's a war
pain,
state. Totally. And a dude called Rowan says, Darcy, I don't understand how someone who has experienced firsthand the struggles of being trans can misgender someone like that. Yeah,
that's really, really sad that happened. That she would have, done that, knowing where she's come from.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that was a few months ago, so I was even less transitioned than I am now. I wasn't even a year on estrogen at the time. And for just someone starting out, like, that's just really damaging. Like, why would you do that to, like, I was so like,
it's really sad. I know someone,
like, she just played into that just to hurt me. I'm almost certain it was just to hurt me.
I know someone who literally committed suicide because they were not accepted by other trans women, and they felt so hurt they literally killed themselves. That's that song that I wrote. That I wrote, Sarah. October Rain is the name of the song. But it's like I said, I am so ashamed of what I've done in the past, and I can't ask for enough forgiveness for the things that I did. And there's no excuse, but I was struggling. So when you hear people doing what they're doing, know that they're in pain. And I just wish that they could work through that pain, they could work through that struggle, so they don't have to hurt others. It's important.
I'm glad, to see you, you seem to be doing much better and figuring stuff out, definitely. Because when you were going through that little detransition period,
it was crazy.
That whole time,
crazy,
very angry.
Yeah.
And then seeing your videos, now that you're back identifying as Mark, you just seem in a much better, much happier.
Oh, I am. Yeah. I'm way better even than when I first transitioned. There's such a peace inside of me, and it's like cemented. I know who I am, and dare anyone say anything else.
Yeah.
Before I may have talked a good game and, went to all the talk shows and, wooed all the talk show hosts and all that stuff. But there was still this lack inside because I felt less than, because that's how I was made to feel. And I thankfully worked through all that. And it took a lot of detours and stuff, but I'm in a very good place right now.
That's good.
And I'm very thankful.
That's good.
I'm just glad that we're able to share our stories. And Marcy was saying that we should keep sharing our stories. It helps more than, being brave enough to be who you are inspires all people of all races, genders, and sexual orientations. And that's coming from a person, I guess she said that she's not even trans.
No, I think she's lesbian,
yeah,
gay. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, it's important for all of us in the LGBT community to share our stories, and we welcome you on our show. If you ever want to be interviewed, please email us at transitionradioshow@gmail.com. We'd love for your voices to be heard, because every story helps someone else. Whether it's one person, it's someone that's being helped.
You're not alone.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
So, anybody has any other questions for Janae? Anything else? If not, anything else you wanted to add, Janae?
I'm sorry. I'm getting distracted by my boyfriend was supposed to be picking up another friend, because I thought this was all gonna happen at 8. So he was actually supposed to be here with my friend, who is a trans guy. And
wow.
He wants me to text him and tell him that they're there. I'm sorry, I got distracted by that.
Go ahead.
All right.
That's all right. So, yeah, it's important for people to realize that you are important. Don't feel less than, because those feelings will end up haunting you and destroying you in the long run. And even though you may think everything is fine on the outside, it's brewing on the inside, and it's hurting you. And if you are a parent of anyone in the LGBT community, please think twice before you hurt them with your words, with your indifference, with you not being able to see them for who they are. You're the parent. You're equipped to be able to either break the spirit of someone or raise that spirit. Stop harming them. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I just think it's really important for people to just be able to be comfortable with who they are. And some people, it's going to take a journey. You know, it's going to take ups and downs. It's going to take those really, really steep climbs up into the mountains and then falling off of a cliff or something for me. You know, all these different avenues to allow ourselves to give ourselves permission to just be, just like your song.
Yeah,
just be.
Just be.
You know,
be and be proud, because there's nothing to be ashamed of. You know, I was ashamed. I was made to feel ashamed for first being a lesbian, and then for owning my true identity as the man that I am.
I'm so sorry about this.
That's okay.
My boyfriend said next time check your damn phone when I message you. I'm on an interview here. I don't know. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Well, it was great.
It was great having you on, and a pleasure. And I'm sure that a lot of people enjoy your story.
Thank you. I loved it.
Don't let anyone bring you down, Janae, and all those old memories and harmful events that you've probably just try to forget. You will be able to heal from all that as you continue to give yourself self-love, as you continue to understand that you are important.
Yeah.
Definitely. And that you're here for a reason.
It's been a journey, and I'm getting better every day. And I'm so blessed to have my boyfriend in my life, because he's so accepting, and he was really there for me when no one else was. And
that's
like
awesome.
He was the first person that really loved me, I feel like genuine love.
That's important, and you're very lucky, because there's a lot of transgender men and women out there that are alone.
Yeah,
and it's hard to go through this by yourself.
That was one of my fears. I was like, I'm never gonna like find somebody if I come out as trans. And then I came out and got on hormones, and I found someone. It's crazy.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. There you go. It was meant to be. All right, so we're going to go ahead and call it a night. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back next Tuesday. We have, who's her name next week? Let me see here. I'm terrible with names. Riley.
Riley Grace.
Riley Grace.
Yeah.
And she's a trans woman, and also with a
story to share.
And again, guys, anyone who wants to be on the show, please email us at transitionradioshow@gmail.com. Again, that's transitionradioshow@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please remember to subscribe, hit that notification button, become a Patreon, or if you'd like to donate, you can donate through Google Pay, and all that information is on the show description. Thank you guys so much. We'll catch you next week. We love you, but remember to always love yourselves too. All right. Thank you, Janae. Thank you to all the chatters. Catch you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Yeah, take care.